fine. Am I here?
Yes, you're perfectly audible. Hello, everyone. A very warm welcome to everyone. I am Nimish Gangrade, agriculture journalist and director at the National Agriculture newspaper, KRISHAK JAGAT. Our today's discussion on Pesticide Management Bill, Opinion of the Experts, is jointly organized by PMFAI and KRISHAK JAGAT. PMFAI is Pesticide Manufacturers and Formulators Association of India. It represents over 250 India-based pesticide manufacturers, formulators, and traders. PMFAI provides regulatory, legal, and legislative supports to its member organization. Our co-host KRISHAK Jagat is India's first national agriculture newspaper, which started publication in 1946. It's a farmer-centric agriculture newspaper. And also empowers farmer with the right information. It's also the largest circulating agriculture newspaper currently in India and is also awarded by ICAR for agriculture journalism. Moving ahead on our today's discussion, which is centered around the Pesticide Management Bill 2020. The bill intends to regulate pesticides, including its import, its manufacturing, its packaging, its labeling, its advertisement, its storage, probably touches every aspect of the industry. The bill seeks to replace the 53-year-old Insecticide Act of 1968. The bill was introduced in Rajya Sabha on March 23rd, 2020, then it was referred to the Standing Committee on 3rd June 2021. The Standing Committee has been given a time period of 3 months to submit its report. I believe today's discussion will give us a broader perspective on understanding what is to be expected. We have 4 senior members from the industry who would share their insights on the bill. The session would be followed by a Q&A wherein the audience can ask the questions with our panelists. I would suggest the audience to use the feature of raise hand on the Zoom so that we can call you a further question. Also suggest you to introduce yourself, your name, followed by the organization, so we get to know you better. Moving ahead on our session, I would first like to call upon Dr. Srinivas Kantevari. Dr. Srinivas is a senior principal scientist at CSIR, Indian Institute of Chemical Technology. His core expertise is in synthetic organic chemistry oriented towards process development of crop protection chemicals. His session will include CSIR's agro mission on off-patent agrochemicals, development of new generation agrochemicals, and hybrid pesticide development. Dr. Srinivas, I would like to call you for the presentation, and you may join the session.
Thank you. Thank you, Nimish. So let me share the slides.
Yeah.
Just let me try. 1 second. Host disabled the participated screen sharing. Can you please give access to screen share?
Yes, you have the access now. You can share.
Okay. Right. Are you able to see the slides, Nimish?
Not yet.
Oh. Okay, just a minute. So screen sharing has failed to start. Just a minute. Just a minute. Somehow the screen share did not happen. So I'm just restarting. Just 1 second, please.
Sure.
So sorry to intervene, but are you sure that you have opened your screen first and then you have opened Zoom? You first open your slides
Yes.
on the desktop.
Yes.
On full screen mode.
Yes.
Then you open Zoom.
Yes.
And then you share the screen.
Yes, sir. I'm doing that.
Yeah, try.
Screen share. One second.
Dr. Srinivas, if required, I have your presentation and I can put it
Yeah,
up on
yeah,
screen
yeah.
share.
Just 1 second. I'm opening the slides. If it doesn't work, then you can
Sure.
just open it, the slides. And now going to this screen share, slides, sound, video clip, share. Will it be visible? No?
No, it's not yet visible.
So maybe you can try now.
Sure, I'll try.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's visible to you?
Yeah, it is visible.
Yeah.
Right. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. Srinivas Kantevari. So working in this crop protection chemicals division almost like 10 to 12 years. Overall, actually, I have an experience of about 24 years in the synthetic organic chemistry and process development. So last a decade onwards, we are working on crop protection chemicals and its process development. So can we move to the next slide, please?
Sure.
So this is actually the dream of Indian farmer, and ultimate goal of the pesticide management should be a farmer centric. So the Indian farmer is always want a good seeds, enough water, and suitable fertilizers, and the effective crop protection agents. The controlling, the protecting, or the effective crop protection agents actually doesn't help to the farmer, of course. So it need to be regulated, but not fully. So next slide, please. So this is the common phenomenon. So when you don't use the crop protection agents, actually the yield is very low as a 30%. But when we use a certain crop protection agents, it goes up to 58%. But still there is a big window of about 42% if we use effective crop protecting agents, and to bring a certain amount of loss that happens due to pests can be reduced, then it will be very efficient. Even a enhancement of yield by using crop protecting agents or other agents, then it will be very helpful to the nation and all. So when we look into what are the types of weeds and its affecting, there are about 10,000 different species of plant-eating insecticides in the exist, and about 3,000 nematicides, and about 30,000 different weeds are there. These are all reducing the crop yields. And when we look into this, despite the modern crop protection yield, so once we enhance this by using effective crop protecting agents, it will be very efficient for the future generation. Next slide, please. So this is the picture taken up. See, not only use of crop protecting agents, actually we have to protect the farmer who is using it. Here, he is not using any of these protecting masks. So one has to make sure whether the pesticide bill or whatever the bill. So it need to be protective to the farmer. So a mechanism need to be made such a way that the farmer should be fully protected while using this kind of crop protecting agents or any agent, for example. Next slide, please. So this is the areas of innovation required. Very first is we are using the process chemistry that is going on for quite some time. And now the chemistry advances are very high, and there are several agents that came up, and several chemistry innovations have come out. So why not we revisit? So is there any mechanism in doing that? See, one is by enhancing the yield, by or reducing the effluents. See, when you are coming with always in the people's mind, agrochemical means it is a pollutant. So when we have an efficient load reduction, that will be a vital. And particularly when industry looks into the agrochemical marketing and cost optimization. So we are competing with China, but at the same time, we should not compromise on the effluent as well as the cost of the products. Now, if we enhance the cost, then again, the burden will go to the farmer. So one has to take into the cost optimization too. Now, not only this, now the government is always, trying or threatening or, whatever the kind to ban certain chemicals because showing their pollution or other kind of problems. But in the several off-patent agrochemicals are coming forward. There are several compounds that are there which are actually safer, and one can use it. So we need to develop a off-patent agrochemical processes and use them effectively. And one more thing is, there is a strategy in a couple of slides. It will come, the common intermediate strategy. I'll discuss in the later slides. Not only that, so India need to have a new chemical entities. In the bill, there is no provision on new chemical entities and new research. So it need to be included. See, India has to develop one day or other day. We have to develop our own crop protecting agents, through our indigenous and innovations. So one has to do it. So that has to be taken up and should be included, the kind of bills that is coming up in the pesticide area. Nanotechnology is something that is vital, particularly fertilizers, the nano fertilizers. Now urea concentrates, nano-based urea concentrates are coming up. So these kind of more innovations are required in future generation. Not only that, the plant-based. Now always when you say botanical or plant-based extracts, then there is a lot of attraction in that. Now the botanical extracts, the business to them are the micro or algae-based, or these kind of extracts are enhancing there. Now recently there is a couple of slides, it will come up, hybrid formulations and botanicals. So these areas coming up in the next few slides, we will cover it. Now impurity profiling and preventing the spurious materials is another area that should be countered in taking this bill into account. Next slide, please. Next. Yeah. So actually, when the China came up, there is a program in 2010, the Keystone program. Such kind of programs are required when Indian scenario. These kind Keystone 973 is National Research Program. This is particularly aimed at the process developments and new molecules and new chemical entities, whether it's a pharma or whether it's agro. So these kind of program India is lacking behind. So one has to have such kind of national program, taking the labs that is doing molecules, the labs that are doing like screening. So these kind of things are needed. Actually, there is no specific screening facility for agrochemicals, for new agrochemicals in India, even government based, because it's a highly expensive, lot of work, a lot of money is required. So government should take up these kind of initiatives, put a national type of program and innovate the molecules, which is having a Chinese model. Next slide, please. So we are about 13 scientists. We are working around 52 researchers. And here we take the help of chemical engineers, analytical scientists, environmental scientists, and there is a business team. Whole lot of team works on together in developing the new molecules, new chemical entities, as well the process development on. We have all the equipments. The industry can come forward and use them. So take our services. Next slide, please. So these are, see, there are a lot of opportunities in off-patent agrochemicals. There are about 26 almost patents. Many of these ingredients have gone off-patent. Almost the 26 compounds are going off-patent. Many of them are non-phosphorus based. So CSIR, what it does is, so when we are doing, okay, let us help the industry in such a way that we develop a bench scale or certain scale of process and then move forward so that you collaborate with the industry and all. So based on that, these 26 molecules. Next slide, please. So we went forward and there are 12 molecules were identified as a CSIR agro mission. So there are 4 from insecticide, 4 from fungicide, and 4 from herbicide. So all these 12 molecules are taken for process, and we developed an innovative process. Of course, some extent we make a non-infringing and freedom to operate. So these kind of techniques we take, we use our chemistry knowledge and make them environmental friendly, green chemistry principles, and we develop the processes and then ready for our agro industry to take forward. So out of the 10, the 11 molecules have completed our bench scale studies. We are taking up the scale up studies too. Next, please. So now the next mission is also going up. So we have taken the list of molecules, about 22 molecules were identified that are going off patent by 2030. So in that, we are planning to have a next 1 year, we want to start another mission by taking a process development for these 22 molecules. Next slide, please. So now the common intermediate strategy. This is one strategy one should look into. See, when you have a molecule that are going to, so here you can see the hydroxyphenoxypropionic acid, which is common. Here only I listed only 9 molecules, but when you look into the literature, there are about 12 molecules that has a common intermediate, but has a diversified profile of molecules in that. So the industry, agro industry, can look into these kind of diversified areas where you have one intermediate, you can have a multiple products, you can make it. So this is the one scenario one can look forward from industry, and this is a good strategy, because sometimes you may not have one market to the one molecule, but you may have to other molecule. Immediately you can switch over to the other molecules and develop. So this strategy could be very much fits to the Indian scenario. Next, please. Here is another example where the pyrazole unit is there. There are about 5 molecules. I listed only 5. There are another 2. So totally there are 7 molecules with this code. And this kind of trend is whole lot of trend is there, whether it's an insecticide, whether it's a fungicide, or whether it's a herbicide. So a lot of molecules with a common course are there. Such kind of group of molecules the industries can identify and can diversify such that you don't lose your market. Next slide, please. So coming into the botanicals, now botanicals are gaining a lot of importance, and then the extraction, particularly extracting from the plant base. So this is what we are now taking up and progressing. The neem extracts we have developed, and then the neem different biopesticide extracts, neem oil, and leftover the cake we are using, giving to the industries where they can use for soil nutrients and all. So we have other plant materials that are ready for development. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Now, this is the new concept that has come out recently. So from Israel farms, the Stockholm introduced the first herbicide, hybrid fungicide called Readymade. So what is this? This has a common tea tree botanical extract, that is from botanical side, and then fungicide is difenoconazole. So that is the another fungicide is used. They made a combination of both of them, and they found that the result is much better than any individual quantity. So in any individual entity. So this is a new innovations and new concepts, and probably India is a diverse in botanicals. Probably some of the molecules that we are currently using in larger ratios or larger quantities can be reduced by such kind of hybrid combinations, hybrid formulations. In this case, the tea tree oil that controls the fungal and bacteria both, that has a disruption of cell membrane, whereas a difenoconazole has another mechanism. So dual mechanism is operating parallelly, so their effectiveness is very high. So these kind of hybrid combinations by chemical and botanical combinations are going to come up in future, and if one can look into, so this is one area one can focus further. Next, please. So nanotechnology, when you actually now nano urea is coming, because the area it covers with the particle size is nano, then the area it covers is very high, 100 nanomolar ratio. Then so the kind of effectiveness with a smaller quantities will be very high. So the nanotechnology and agrochemicals and pesticides that will be efficient for the future generations. Next, please. So these are a couple of examples where the nano emulsions, nanocapsule. Nanocapsule is nothing but you can load it into the pesticide into a capsule form in the nano particle size, so that the slow release of pesticide can be taken. So it will be long lasting, and it is a protective and can work. So some of the examples we have quoted here: liposomal based, liposomal nanoparticles, or inorganic nanoparticles. So all these parameters that works in the nano area. So this is another area coming up and then working very well. Next, please. The impurity profile. So when you actually the pesticide management bill, when you look into that, it's basically to control the spurious pesticides. So then one has to have the spurious pesticide. One should know its profile, complete profile of the molecule. Then impurity profiling is really whether you develop, whether you submit to the CIB, or whether you submit to any other organization or any other registration. Impurity profile is extremely important, and this should be taken care. And this is the fingerprint that can be used to map whether the pesticide is spurious or whether any other impurities are added. So that kind of mapping can be done by following this impurity profile. IICD is now well versed because we have a lot of analytical techniques we use, and then we follow it up. Next slide, please. So this is the bifenthrin. We have done a mapping and impurity profiling. We are doing for another 3 molecules similarly. And by generating a 5-batch data, we are helping the industry to go for registrations and all. Next slide. Next, please. Now, coming to the new chemical entity, India has now very well done in pharmaceutical sector. There are rapid growth in the pharmaceutical. Then several multinational companies are coming up. Since it's a low cost and high production, R&D processes are there, manufacturing are there, clinical trials are there. Now, why not the agrochemical sector also follow same pharma route? In fact, the agrochemicals, we need even stringent more research compared to the pharma. It's very tough. It's very tough to do agrochemical inventions than the pharma. You have to screen humans, not only against the humans, or not only the pests, humans, aqua, all the species you need to screen about it. So it will be even tougher. So we can, since we have an advantage of pharmaceutical research in India, we can follow it up with agrochemicals too. And then hope the new chemical entity is coming up. Now we are also pitching to the government that, we should have a center to screen the molecules in India itself, develop our own molecules, use our own molecules. So these kind of things has to be added in whatever the pesticide management bill or whatever management bill. So there is no provision that the new molecules are there and India is going to do. So this kind of provision should be added in the bill. Next, please. So small modification, this is one example. This is a molecule that has inactive. And this is a small change here became a fungicide and herbicide. Agrochemicals has a very good scenario compared to the pharma. So a small changes actually switching over different activities. So when you identify that kind of parameters, it will be a boost for us. So mainly the chemistry will be similar, but a small changes is giving different activities due to their targets and due to their different binding pockets and all those studies. Next, please. So this is the new chemistry. So new chemistry, when you look into that, these are all the neonicotinoids. Now, in the similar scenario, these are all the compounds where the chloropyridine units are there. Now, the same chloropyridine, but the changed into a different scaffold. So their butanolides came. These are supposed to be the one. Now, more recently, the mesoionics is the stage that has come up. Next, please. Next, please. So these are all the targets one can do. If we have really a screening facility and if we have really a certain R&D, and then these kind of mesoionics could be even more safer and more target oriented and environmental friendly too. So we are planning, actually we are pitching the government to have these kind of facilities for the future innovations. Next slide, please. So when you look into this, this is a neonicotinoid as I've taken as a case study. See how the new molecules are getting developed. Here, this is the imidacloprid, thiacloprid. What is changed is the other portion. The pink portion will be same. So the small other portion, they have changed it and have a different kind of neonicotinoids. Here, the components will be similar, but here just a thiazole, thiamine, clothianidine. So when you look into the two fragments, when they are changing, a different new molecules have appeared. Next, please. So in the Chinese Keystone program, what they did is, see, there is a mechanism called neonicotinoid works through choline inhibition. So this is the acetylcholine. They changed into a different phenomenon analysis. Now the dinotefuran came, keeping the similar unit, and thioclonidine came with a keeping similar unit. Now what Chinese have done, kept a chloropyridine unit constant, a chlorothiazole. Other portion they changed and they claimed their own molecules now. So such kind of simple innovation, but highly effective. So those kind of things one should look into in making a small changes, big rewards. Next, please. So you can take it to next, please. Next, please. So spurious pesticides, that is one of the major problem in India. So now backslide, yeah. So the manufacturing, how do we differentiate these spurious pesticides? So one has to have a mechanism, one has to have a certified lab where one can do this kind of genuine pesticide differentiating. So industry suffers, farmer suffers. and someone else will get benefited. So industry gets a bad name because of this kind of thing, and the farmer gets all his production loss and all. So one has to have a bridge this. So IICT CSIR actually we'd like to take up this bridge and fill this gap by taking analytical methods and then impurity profiling in these crop protection chemicals, so that it will be helpful to registration agencies or any other agencies. See, when you say that someone is saying that you are producing a illegal or non-genuine product, how do you say? So you have to have a certain lab, or you have to have a certain mechanism. So these kind of mechanisms should be added and should be included. Facilities or such kind of facilities need to be built in for the nationwide. So to develop enough expertise, one has to have a center for excellent crop care is required in the nationwide. Next, please. So this is another pheromone technology which is actually getting popularized. One has to have actually the pheromone technology in combination with the agrochemicals. Pheromone technology, what it identifies, what kind of insect it will come out. So when you put a trap and those kind of insects, now you know what kind of pest one can do. So one has to have a synchronized efforts with respect to agrochemical with the pheromone technology. Pheromones is not completely a solution. So one has to have a synchronized efforts. So these synchronization one makes it into reality, then it will be more effective, and then it will become like you can use only very specific pesticide that is required for that insect. So the usage also can be controlled. Next, please. Yeah. So now there are various government programs, actually the high risk, high reward research or industrial R&D research, SERP and DST, or even BIRAC programs are coming up, are there. So one can use it and develop, these kind of mechanisms or work and R&D. And then also, if possible, if the bill or any other mechanism permits, one should have a national mechanism for the crop protection, nation mission for the crop protection, where a centralized thing will be of helpful to the industry, to the farmer, and to the society. Next, please. So this is in summary, IICT would be working closely with the technologies in the crop protection area, interfering with the chemistries, whatever we have the knowledge in process improvement, process development, and indigenous molecules and new crop protection agents, as well as the interfering and identifying the spurious pesticides. Not only that, also we interact with the farming community by delivering this traditional scientific knowledge and which of the molecules that are better used and all those things. So a CSIR mission, that is we are working on developing off-patent agrochemicals processes as well as the product availability. So these are the few activities we are working on. Thank you. Thanks you once and all. Please let me know if you have any other queries. Thank you. Thank you, Nimish.
Thank you, Dr. Srinivas. Your session was insightful. Spurious agrochemicals is a big problem for the Indian agrochemical industry.
Yes.
I'm sure we have a lot of questions coming in from the audience. We'll take them at the end of the session.
Sure.
Moving ahead with our next session today, we have with us Dr. Sandeep Singh. He's the Managing Director at Farinsys Research. Farinsys Research is a research organization which has received national level awards for industry development and research. He is also the scientific and policy advisor with PMFAI. Today's session would focus on why India should make technical grade registrations mandatory and stop importing ready-made pesticides. Dr. Sandeep, over to you. Dr. Sandeep seems to have lost connection. We'll move on to the next session for the day, and then meanwhile, we'll check back with him. Our next session is with Dr. Ajit Kumar. Dr. Ajit Kumar is the Principal Technical Advisor with UPL. He is also a well-known authority in the field of product development and regulatory affairs. He has successfully launched many new generation agrochemical molecules in India. Apart from his assignment in UPL as Principal Technical... Can you hear me, sir? Apart from his assignment in UPL as Principal Technical Advisor, Dr. Ajit Kumar is also the Chairman of Technical Committee CCFI Crop Care Federation of India. He'll give us a perspective on the Pesticide Management Bill 2020 and what will be the hindrances in making India top global leader in the pesticide manufacturing. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible, sir.
Okay. So I just go to screen sharing.
Yeah.
Is
We can
the
see your
screen
screen.
visible?
Yes, visible,
Okay.
sir.
Yes. So the topic that I want to speak on is what are these top 15 key issues that if they are addressed, then we can catapult India as a global manufacturer of pesticide. So this is what I am going to talk about. Now, if you see, this bill is coming after 50 years, and then there are a lot of expectation from this new law towards the various government policies that government has been talking about, that is make in India, ease of doing business, and doubling in for farmers' income, etc., etc., etc. So we just want to review whether this PMB has been successful in addressing these issues. So I'm coming to directly the issues, and our issue number one in the order of priority is that PMB has criminalized almost all the offenses that are set out in this Pesticides Management Bill. So there are various sections. You can see that right from section 44 to 50, and then there is a section 52 separately. And all these provisions are not conducive for the manufacturing activity in India. They need to be converted to civil in nature, and they need to be brought in parallel to the rest of the provisions in the other laws. For example, Prime Minister has given a call for safeguarding investors against wrong actions in case of genuine commercial failures. And Finance Minister in the Union Budget 2020 announced provisions to do away with criminal penalty in business. So this is what we want to happen, and all these sections have to be reread in light of this objective. I mean, what I'm trying to say is that pesticides manufacturers are not criminals. We are the asset generator for the country. That's how we expect PMB to have the law provisions. Our punishment list is very long. And if you see the serial number 7, causing hurt, grievous hurt, or death, the penalty is 10 to 50 lakhs. And there is a provision for imprisonment up to 5 years. Not defining what does it mean, what is hurt, what is grievous hurt. Nowhere in PMB it has been defined, and it has been left to anybody's imagination. And therefore, I mean, there should be penalty, there should be punishment, but then you have to view that who are the genuine manufacturer and who are making deliberate duplicate business in this section. That's the point I want to make. Now, our issue number 2 is that there is a provision in section 30 within bracket 3, which says that the license granted to any person under this act shall be revoked if the person is convicted of an offense in this act. I mean, it is so general that even if my one sample fails, and am convicted for whatever reason, my entire license containing other 10 products also will be considered. In a way, my factory will be closed. Such is the impact of this provision, and this should be withdrawn. The punishment should be limited to the particular offense, and entire license should not be revoked. That's what we are saying. Our next issue is there is a provision for arbitrary ban. There is a provision for arbitrary ban. I mean, if I think, am I audible? I'm disconnected, I guess.
You're audible.
Yeah, I'm audible. Just a minute. There is something.
We can still see your presentation.
You can see my presentation, but I can't see.
Okay.
Just a minute. Something happened here. Resume to share. Yes, now I can see. So section 35, subsection 2 says that merely on the basis of opinion by state government or central government, the product can be banned for 1 year. And then further, it is subjected to the scrutiny by registration committee, which will take another 6 months to review the product, just on the opinion. There is no scientific ground involved. Just on the basis of opinion, your product can be banned for 1 year, and then it will go for review for registration committee, which is going to take another 6 months. So in total, about 1.5 years, just basis on the opinion, the product can be banned. It is not desirable if India really wants to be hub of the pesticide manufacturing. Our next issues involve the arrest of the director in the first instance of the offense. It is not fair. The director of the company is not the person who is running day-to-day affairs factory or the company. And in the similar situation, if you see the Food Safety and Standards Act, they have included this clause. They have added this clause so that directors of the company are not unnecessarily harassed. So this is what we want, that PMB should be addressing this problem. There is a provision for pesticide control. There is a provision in the bill for pesticide price control. Now, this is such a thing that has ignored that what amount of expenses are involved to do research in pesticide, bring it to the farmers, and then face tough competition. So we want to say that pesticide market is self-regulated market, and price control should not be coming into place. Now, import of formulation is killing Indian industry and does not provide level playing field. So I think there is a dedicated talk by my other industry colleague. So I'm not touching it. I'm just saying that if you want to import formulation, you have to register the technical necessarily, because the advantage these importers get, that they manufacture these formulations overseas out of the expired technical grade material. And it contains the impurities which are not desirable. And therefore, our farmer suffers, our environment suffers, and our industry as a whole suffers. Therefore, there has to be necessarily registration of a technical grade pesticide along with the formulation, import formulation. There is a clause which is built in the PMB that if the pesticides are banned within the country, it cannot be distributed overseas. In other words, it cannot be exported. Now, there are, in the global scenario, there are situations that India has banned it for whatever local reasons, but it is being used by USA, by Europe, by Japan, and they want these products in their country, and our law has prohibited that. It is not fair. If you see, the banned products cannot be distributed, and distribution has been defined as the means, distribution means the process by which pesticides are supplied through trade and channels to domestic or international market. Now, any law that is made operates within the territory of India. Now, there cannot be embargo on the international market, and therefore this term international has to be removed if you really want India to be hub of manufacturing and supplier to the world. There is a provision to sell the pesticides through prescription. Now tell me, we have got over 6 lakhs villages and scores of farmers. Now, which machinery of us can write prescription of the pesticides for the farmers so that they can purchase them? So this is going to throw the country in very chaotic situation, and this prescription idea should be withdrawn. There is a provision that pesticides registered so far will need re-registration. Absolutely not required, because these pesticides have been there in this country for decades. They have been registered here after satisfying fully with the safety and efficacy, and there is no point in deregistering them and then asking industry to apply for registration again. Makes no sense. So by default, they should automatically be treated as registered when the new law comes into place. There is a provision for review process. And this review process is so wide that so many people can initiate it and take a view on this. And the agency which has come into it is the registration committee. It can review the pesticide at its own after having allowed, after due consideration, fit for it to be used in the country. So this gives a lot of arbitrariness, and therefore this kind of law cannot be allowed. An agency which approves the product cannot be the agency to withdraw it. There should be independent agency. That is what we are asking. Our issue number 11 is that there are many terms used in Pesticides Management Bill. As I mentioned, you heard grievous hurt, plant growth regulator, molecule, quality of pesticides, end use of pesticides, etc., etc., safer alternatives. Now, this all has not been defined, but they make the basis of registration process. So in order to bring the transparency, it is very much required that these terms are defined. What do we mean by writing these words? So all subjectivity can go if you define this particular term. Our issue number 12 is that generic pesticides, India is a house of generic pesticides. 99.99% product available here are generic pesticides. But what this law wants to say is that the person who comes first as registrant, what in today's terminology we call 9(3) registration, will be called as original registrant, although he'll be registering the generic pesticide itself. And I'm going by the definition of generic pesticides. Pesticides whose patent has expired are called as generic pesticide. So if a person who is coming to register the product first time, even if it is a generic pesticide, he becomes original. And subsequent registration holders will be called as generic pesticide manufacturer. So this is dividing the market in two sectors: the original manufacturer of the generic pesticides and the generic manufacturer of the generic pesticide. So it does not make sense. So I think this provision has to be seen in light of the science. Generic pesticide is a generic pesticide. The first registrant cannot be called as original for that. And you cannot create the Indian manufacturer who manufactures the same pesticide as a second grade citizen in his own country. That's the point we want to make, and it's a very, very serious issue with us. Our next issue is that there is no timeline prescribed as to when I'll get registration. So as a manufacturer, I'm simply lost. I want to invest, but I have no clue as to when my registration will be granted. And mind you, this provision is the dilution of the existing provision, which says that registration will be given in 1 year. It's not given, that's a different story. But there is a law to deal with it. Now this PMB wants to take away this provision. So it's all open-ended. So we want to say that there has to be a definite time limit for grant of the registration. And when the registration is to be granted, there are many subjective clauses that end use of pesticide will be the criteria, whether the pesticide should be registered or not. But what does it mean really is not known to us. What do you mean by end use of the pesticide? And this is what exactly we are saying. Please define, what do you mean by this? You are saying that availability of safer alternatives will be considered. What it means is that if there is another safer alternative available, you'll be refused registration. But what is this? What do you mean by safer alternative? Once you have evaluated the pesticides with a view to on toxicology and efficacy and environment and this and that, and you declare that it's a safer insecticides, and you allow it to be registered. And in second instance, you say, no, there is a safer alternative which has come, and therefore this product has to be withdrawn. I don't think any manufacturer will be comfortable with this, to invest the money with this kind of subjective clause. So we want this subjectivity should go from the Pesticides Management Bill. And our last issue is that there is a lot of uncertainty about the registration guidelines. And most of the time, it is based on the opinion of the registration committee. Now, it's not transparent. You have to write black and white, what is it that you want the product to be registered, so that manufacturer knows that I'm meeting these criteria, I'm meeting these requirements, I'm sure my product will be registered, and therefore I take a call to make investment into this country. So, ladies and gentlemen, these are the main point, main issues of the industry from the perspective of India being a global manufacturer. And if these issues are looked into it, I think we have got a lot of hope. And as you know, that Indian pesticide industry has come of an age. From time to time, Indian industry has proposed revamp pesticide laws so as to help it become a global leader. However, PMB needs to be seriously aligned with the government's stated objectives of Make in India, ease of doing business, doubling farmers' income, etc., etc. With these words, I close my talk. Thank you so much. Thank you, Krishak Jagat. Thank you, PMFAI, for giving me this platform to share my views. Thank you a lot.
Thank you, sir. Your session gave a lot clearer understanding about the key concerns that the industry has with the Pesticide Management Bill 2020. We would move on to our next session with Dr. Sandeep Singh. Dr. Sandeep Singh is the Managing Director at Farinsys Research. Farinsys Research is a research organization which has received national level awards for industry development and research. He is also the scientific and principal advisor with PMFAI. His today's session would focus on why India should make technical grade registrations mandatory and stop importing ready-made pesticides. Over to you, Dr. Sandeep.
Yeah, thank you. Nimish, I request you, can you share my presentation, please?
Sure. Can you see the screen now?
Yeah, thank you. The main thing, what I have seen, am I audible to everyone?
Yes, you're audible.
Yeah. So Dr. Ajit has presented very well all the 15 concerns of the industry, and PMFAI shares most of them. And in addition to that, I want to bring very important point in the picture. Basically, the technical grade pesticides, as per Insecticide Act, they has to be registered along with the formulations. And whatever formulation somebody is making, that has to be made from a registered technical grade pesticide. But now in PMB, this mandatory requirement has gone. Next slide, please. Yeah. So in Insecticide Act, there are two provisions. One is registration, that is dealt by section 9.3 and section 9.4. And another is the monitoring, basically. That is dealt by the section 21, insecticide inspectors. Both of these provisions are very important for the safety of the pesticides, because as we all know, pesticides are very poisonous in nature, and they need to be monitored for their toxicity so that it will be safe for farmers and users and for the end use consumer also. So in case of monitoring, Insecticide Act had two provisions. One is at level of the production. CIBRC has usually monitors the production so that the manufacturer has to manufacture the registered chemical composition only. And second thing is the distribution and sale. So distribution and sale, that is common for everybody. Specifications are there, and the insecticide inspector draw the sample from distribution chain. So in case of production of registered chemical composition, it is true for both technical as well as formulation. And for distribution and sale, as far as farmers is concerned, this is for formulation only. Next slide, please. Yes. So the main thing is monitoring, which is lacking as on today in India in few registrations. That is at the production level monitoring. So what I did here in this slide, I summarized all the guidelines in few basic guidelines. All other guidelines are the part of these guidelines. So basically, they are categorized into three parts, where the molecule is registered and monitored. Both situations are here. This is happening when the technical is registered on that section 9.3 TIM or 9.4 TIM, and the formulation based on it also get registered. If you see here, this technical import, once we import the technical, then make the formulation from here. This all categorization is for home consumption pesticides only. So this situation is for registered and monitored. Another situation occurs when product is registered, but its production is unmonitored. It happens when, as Dr. Ajit mentioned very rightly, when the production happen in foreign countries or in other countries. So this happen in two guidelines. One is formulation import with registration of technical, and another one is with formulation import without registration of technical. In this case, registration happen, but monitoring is not there. There is another third very dangerous case where neither the technical is registered nor it is being monitored. So why this is creating a problem of health and safety and to our environment and health? If we see in case of registered and monitored scenario, the CIBRC monitors and assess the quality for technical as well as for formulation. In case of formulation, as you are aware, there are the BIS specifications. They do not cover the chemical composition in quality assessment. However, in case of indigenous manufacturing, these parameters are covered when government is monitoring this technical part and manufacturing part. In case of registered and unmonitored situations, the formulations are evaluated. Random sampling was done from the market and formulations are evaluated for specification only. No evaluation of chemical composition is done on the product. Government don't know what are the ingredients, only the registrations, on the label, whatever has mentioned, they has to believe it is there. In case of registered and monitored, government check the registered composition with the actual product. But here, in case of registered and unmonitored scenario, this checking of this chemical composition is not there. Third scenario, unregistered and unmonitored. In this scenario, government do not have the power. In this case, first case, this second case, registered and unmonitored situation, government has power. In case of technique, if the formulation import is registered along with the technical import. But in case of unregistered and unmonitored scenario, government cannot even withdraw the sample, cannot ask the sample to the companies, importing companies. Basically, most of MNCs and few importers in India, the government cannot technically ask them because technical is not registered. So how government monitor it? Government monitor it on the basis of specification only. So for Indian manufacturer, which is the first scenario, this yellow one, this is for Indian manufacturers, and this green and blue is for MNCs and importers. Next slide, please. So what this unmonitored situation, what is the risk? And because it is mandated by the section 21, but it is not there in the case of imported formulations. The shelf life, as Dr. Ajit mentioned, nobody monitor the shelf life in a foreign country because the product is being manufactured in the foreign country. And this nobody is manufacturing the purity of the technical. Nobody is monitoring the quality of the technical in case of imported formulation. And in case of formulations, nobody is monitoring the adjuvant, the additional product which need to AI to be formulated so that it can be sprayed on the crops. Though nobody is monitoring that. And it is not possible even when the product entered in India, the final formulation entered in India, because there is no provision. Only physico-chemical properties are being checked by the CIBNRC as on today. The monitoring, nobody is, when the adjuvants are not being monitored, forget about the quality of the monitoring. Only one thing is common. Only the formulation when it is in market in the distribution center, that has to, CIBRC is checking that on the basis of the specification. Next slide, please. So these unmonitored situations create several problems. As you are aware of, these formulations are always being made from this technical grade. First, technical grade companies make technical grade, then they make formulation formula. And technical grades have two types of component. One is active ingredient and another is associated impurities. The IUPAC technical report defines these associated impurities as relevant and irrelevant impurities. In irrelevant impurities are the manufacturing raw materials is coming, some other reactant is coming, but there are some relevant impurities which affect the efficacy and safety of the active ingredient. And for that part, I want to focus on specifically on the first part. This toxicologically significant impurities. Next slide, please. This is the APVMA list of the toxicological impurities. You can see ETU is here. Next slide, please. This is the current situation in India. First column mentions the formulations, whether they are either registered in formulation import with registration of technical or formulation import without registration of technical. And there are the international bodies, FAO, Food and Agriculture Organization, and IUPAC, who mandates the regulation of these impurities has to be in the minimum limit. Maximum limit is given here. So these are the pesticides which are registered in India. This pesticide is registered without registration of technical. This thiophanate methyl and pyraclostrobin. And nobody knows whether these manufacturers are making these from these compliant technical or not. You see the Mandapropid and Mancozeb, here the manufacturers has to control the ETU. But when the product is coming from the foreign country, there is no provision and no method available or no instrument available to the CIBRC or a state government to know what was the ETU content in the Mancozeb technical when the pesticide was made, because this manufacturing was done in a foreign country. These are the few cases. And this is severe health hazards. This is a toxicologically significant impurity. It happens with here also. You see, they are bringing generic technicals from other countries, and we are the leader. We are the leader in Mancozeb. In tebuconazole also you can see. Next slide, please. What is the solution? So every genuine company want to solve this situation because nobody want to give any uncontrolled. We believe everybody is doing good business. The thing is, some monitoring should be there. Indian manufacturers are always being monitored. So by quality wise, scientifically, Indian manufactured product is far superior than the MNCs because everything is being monitored under the government. But in case of the imported formulations, everything is not being monitored by the government, and nobody knows what is coming in these pesticides, what is a toxicological scenario, whether they are being made from the expired material or not. So how to solve this? This technical grade registration need to be registered mandatorily. What it will enable? It will enable our government to draw the samples, and it will also push the MNCs to make the material here in India so that our agencies can monitor it. Another thing is import of ready-made formulations should be avoided as far as possible. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Miss. Over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Sandeep, for sharing the current situation in India and why technical grade registration should be made mandatory. Our next session of the day is on data protection. We have Dr. Kuppusamy with us, who is a Senior General Manager and Head of Regulatory Affairs of Crop Protection at Coromandel International Limited. Dr. Kuppusamy has more than 26 years of experience in regulatory affairs and new product development. He'll give us more understanding on the data protection and its importance on Indian agrochemical industry. Over to you.
Yeah, good evening to all. Thank you very much. First of all, let me thank you very much for the organizer, KRISHAK Jagat and PMFAI, this webinar of PMB 2020, which is very critical at this time because now PMB is under discussion with parliamentary committee and they have started inviting comments from the stakeholders. So it is very, very important point. Now we are discussing this PMB 2020. And as Dr. Ajit has explained, 15 worries. Maybe data protection is another 16th worry. It is not included in current PMB, but we can consider as a 16th worry data protection if it is implemented. With this things, I will show you a few slides on data protection, and let me start my presentations. 1 minute. Yeah. This is a small gist about Indian agrochemical industries. This most of us very well known that India is fourth largest producer of agrochemicals in the world, and we are one of the biggest exporter also. And the Indian agrochemical industry is now 42,000 crore turnover. With this, more than 50% of this turnover is from export of our agrochemicals. Most of the products are generics. The industry's growth is expected about 8 to 10% year on year till 2025. And the industry represented by various companies. One is the MNC companies, Indian companies, which includes technical manufacturer, formulator, importers, exporters, traders, and small players. So MNCs are registering and introducing a new products in India, both patented as well as off-patented. Indian manufacturers are very strong in R&D to develop off-patent, generic and innovative combination products, which are very key for Indian as well as international market. Indian players are mainly rely on manufacturing off-patent generics, which goes for export. This is about just about Indian industry. Under Atmanirbhar Bharat, it is projected 15 billion US dollar business in 2029. So if you see the registrations with CIBRC, this also everybody knows that 9(3) new molecule registration first time in India. This registration done by innovators or innovator supporting companies in India, and they submit full data as per the guidelines, including so-called long-term tox data as well as metabolism studies. Then the registration will be granted for the technical import or formulation import for depends on their applications. It is allowed for technical import as well as formulation import without technical registering in India, which was Dr. Sandeep was explaining us why we should register a formulation import. And this registration is mainly used for Indian market. They don't export it, mostly for India use. So after this new molecule registration, so what's happening? Our Indian companies are going for a TIM registration, that is 9(3) TIM or 9(3) TA new source, that mainly from China source. So these registrations mostly done by Indian companies. There are relaxed guidelines for both cases for TA new source as well as TIM. Limited data requirements, no need to submit metabolism studies like long-term stock studies. There is a relaxations given by Indian government for indigenous manufacturers. So the registration will be granted relied on 9(3) original inventor data. Yes, this is the stick. This is what innovator companies are claiming, that they need a protection. Okay. After 9(3) registrations, 9(4) TIM or FIM registration will be granted based on the equivalence of 9(3). Okay, this is the system in India. Now the 3 type of registrations prevailing general. So what is data protections? Data protection or data exclusivity is the data submitted, whatever data submitted by the inventor for the regulatory purpose for getting a registration, that need to be protected. That means the first time registrations, new molecule registration under 93 TFI, whatever data submitted, the data protection is out. So under the data protection, if the data protection is granted, the regulatory authorities cannot rely on the data submitted by inventor companies, and they cannot grant any 93 TIM or TI new source registrations to any Indian companies during the data protection period. So data protection or exclusivity is an independent, and it can be either in addition or to the lieu of patent protection. That is, patent protection already is there for 20 years by patent law. India is also a signatory of WTO agreement, and this India also respecting their patent, and we are allowing to give this exclusivity. So companies, innovator companies are claiming data protection for off-patent generics, the product which already off-patent. For that, they need a data protection. This is the issue here. A TRIPS agreement is, we are also, India is one of the signatory of WTO TRIPS agreement. This agreement says about data protection that the approving of marketing of pharmaceutical or agriculture chemical products which utilize new chemical entities. They are saying new chemical entities, the submission of undisclosed test data, which shall be protected, such a data against unfair commercial use. Okay, this is what they are saying. In this stipulation of Article 39(3) of TRIPS agreement, it restricts to marketing of pharmaceutical agriculture chemical product which utilize new chemical entities. But they have not given any definition of what is new chemical entities. New chemicals, as per our understanding, that product should be a new product which during the patent period. So, and also this Article 39(3) does not require any kind of fixed period of data protection. So India under these conditions, there is no obligation to provide same as it maybe a TRIPS plus privileges. TRIPS is the 20 years protection under patent law, and what they are shouting is plus privilege, which is which we should not give. So I have given here some details about data protection as per the patent. 20 years exclusivity is there for the inventor to protect their data. During this period, no one can come into market. They have a legal monopoly, and 20 years long period is sufficient to get back their money, whatever they spend on their initial research or the regulatory cost or the data generation cost, whatever it is. And moreover, this patent is not only for India, it is for a global. They would have registered for many countries. There is a possibility to get back money from various countries. If the molecule registered in the introduced in India in the early stage of patent, they will get more than 14 years of data protection. That is monopoly. After registration, I have given two illustrations here. One is chlorantraniliprole, another is bluebandamide. If you see chlorantraniliprole patent filed in 2002, granted in 2007 in India. Registration done, first registration done in India is 2008. They have launched in 2008. Now we are in 2021. Patent is going to expire in 2022. So still date no generics have come because there is a patent. They have 14 years. This 14 years exclusivity, I think it is sufficient to get back all their the expenses, whatever they did for regulatory or data generation part. Same thing for flubendomide also, they have got 12 years exclusivity, that is under patent law. So therefore, there is no separate data protection for a product which already off patent, even if they introduced as a new entity in India. So in 2008, the parliamentary committee, actually this information I have taken from the report of Parliamentary Standing Committee. What is their view? The committee were informed that MNCs are demanding data exclusivity on their data so that its use could be prevented for allowing generic manufacturers for a marketing approval. That means 9(3) TIM registrations. The committee feels that conceding the demand of data exclusivity would amount to agreeing TRIPS plus provisions. Okay, TRIPS plus provision is additional data protection over 20 years. So they are saying such demand, it comes in the bilateral forum. There is a possibilities to come up with additional demands of extending their IPR right and compulsory licenses and other activities. Therefore, data exclusivity are quite serious issues in India. Committee strongly recommend that government should not fall prey to such demand of MNCs. This is what mentioned in the 88th report of Parliamentary Standing Committee on Patent Trademarks System. It is available in the public domain document. And data protection, see, as of in India, there is no provision for data protection or data exclusivity as of now for both agrochemical as well as pharma products, other than the patent protection of 20 years. So Insecticide Act, nothing to say about data protection, as well as the new PMB, there is no provision as of now. If the data protection is provided, this will give a monopoly to the inventor company, even after 20 years of patent period. And this will delay for coming Indian companies as a generic players for a technical manufacturing. This will create a high price. These companies will start selling at a high price to the farmers, since there is no generic players during this data protection if they provided for a particular period. So generics, we can say generics. What is generics? A pesticide introduced after original patent lapse are all called generics. Generics is nothing but the same active ingredient as patented one and registered by the government authorities, applying the same standard for registering product which is originally patented. So regulatory authorities are granting registrations relying on the first registration data. That is there not only in India, and many other countries also they are relying on the other data, so that need not to waste resources. Therefore, generics works at a par with the first registered product, that is almost same. Whereas the price of generic products are significantly lower compared to the original inventor cost. This everybody knows. The example we can quote that when Imida was introduced, this the initial amount was about 400 rupees per acre cost. Now it is around 80 rupees per acre cost after coming into generics. So more than 60% of the global crop protection markets are with generics. Our Indian companies are mostly generic players, and we are mostly concentrating on both India as well as international market. So once patent is expired, all products are considered as a generic, and for a generic, you should not give any additional data protection or exclusivity. So to concluding my speech, I would say this data exclusivity or protection, if we give TRIPS plus privilege, that is over 20 years data protection, this will hamper our economics, Indian economic interests, and retard the effect of Atmanirbhar Bharat program and Make in India. 20 years data protection is allowed in India, and hence no need to have separate data protection after patent expiry. So the inventor can introduce their product during the patent period. They can get patent. They can get exclusivity. Whereas once the product is off patent, there should not be any exclusivity, and there should not be any protection of regulatory data, so that many generic players can come into the market. With that, farmers can get benefit with a lower cost. So data protection for generic off-patent agrochemicals should not be considered in Pesticide Management Bill, as it is against Make in India or Atmanirbhar Bharat programs. With this, I can conclude my questions. I'm very happy to receive questions if any. Thank you very much for the organizers, especially PMFAI and KRISHAK Jagat. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Kuppusamy. The agrochemical industry has been talking on the data protection issue for years now, and with your presentation, it gives a perspective on what the industry has been missing now. We will move ahead with the question and answers round now. We have our panelists to answer all the questions. I would suggest the participants to use the raise hand feature in the Zoom so that we can unmute you for the question. I also suggest you to introduce yourself with your name and the name of the organization that you represent before you ask the question. Dr. S. Ramamurthy, I am unmuting you for the question. Dr. S. Ramamurthy. We'll take the next question. Dr. Praveen Singh. Dr. Praveen Singh, you are audible.
Yeah, thank you, Nimesh. I am not a professional in the field of a pesticide and agrochemical, but yeah, I have a little question because as a user, I am in a high-tech farming of means protected cultivars and all. But once I just see the label of all these pesticides, I fail to get a clear indication that what is the half-life or something like a residual cycle of these chemical. So is there any provision or a government is taking some step for making it mandatory? I understand that this question is little away from the subject what we are talking, but that was a concern from my side. So I thought that let me ask that question. Thank you.
Yes, because Nimish, can I take the question because he has not directed question to anybody?
Absolutely, Dr. Sandeep.
Yeah. So, Mr. Praveen, on the label itself, there is information for the harvest interval. Once you spray on your crop, after that you have to take a time period. By default, if it is not there, you have to take a precaution for 10 to 15 days. But usually for pesticides, where it matters, there is always a harvest interval is already given.
Okay.
Yes.
But see, my experience, whenever I see the label of any pesticide, I fail to get, because I used to ask my agronomist, whenever you are buying anything, you specifically see that what is this duration. So don't we have any such mandatory legal requirement from the government of India?
Yeah, there is a mandatory requirement, and there was a notification also. For that, from that notification only, I am saying 15 days if it is not mentioned on the label. Otherwise, if it is more than 15 days, it is always on label.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take the next question from Dr. Rahul Hidao.
Yes, sir. Hi, good evening. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Yeah, sir, this is the question to Dr. Ajit Kumar. Actually, he gave us a very beautiful insight about the Indian government, and it actually reflects about how exactly we are going to proceed in future and what are the struggles actually with registration departments. So thanks for that. My question was to Ajit Kumar sir only. Reason because he said somewhere that India is the big market for the generic companies. And how do we see India as an emerging country for the innovative molecules? Could you please in brief on that? Thank you.
Yeah, Nimish, you want me to?
Also, please go ahead.
Yeah. So can you please repeat the question? I heard it, but I got it half only.
Yeah, sure, Ajit sir. Hi, this is Dr. Rahul. Dr. Rahul from Kroda, India. Actually, I heard what India is more like a generic market and seems to be what you can say massive market for the generic molecule. So do we see any forecasting for India as a country for the innovative molecules in future?
Yes, so far as today's situation that you know of, India is a country of generic manufacturers. I mean, India manufactures those pesticides whose patent has expired. Now, in the meantime, what has happened? There are many companies in India who have gained in size and scale of operation, and they have become almost a multinational company. They are operating in many, many countries. And these are the countries who have initiated the invention or innovation of new molecules. So this is something, a confidential information that these companies are doing. Even if I know for my company, for confidentiality sake, I cannot tell you. But then there are many molecules which are in the discovery mode in India. That's what I want to tell you. Did I answer your question?
Yes, sir. Thanks. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
We'll take the next question from Mr. K.N. Singh.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
No, exactly. It's not a question because just I heard that all my the colleagues. So just I want to add on that.
K.N. Singh, can you also share your organization details so that we know?
Yeah, I'm basically from the PMFAI as well as from the Agrochemicals as well as from the CCFI. But basically, I'm in the Agrochemicals.
Okay.
Presently, I'm representing Agrochemicals.
Okay.
So basically, that what I want to just emphasize, whatever my colleagues have said, because this is going to be related to the Pesticide Management Bill. And that we being a pesticide manufacturer, we are also a interested party in that. So just for your information, because that I'm sure that you are going to take up this with the Parliament Committee. So India that follow the principle of the equivalence in the pesticides, we follow basically the principle of the self-life, and that we also that follow the justification for the presence of impurity, and whatever that Sandeep explained, that registration and that monitoring, and the data protection, the per se that it is not existing as of today in India in any field in general. However, we are an exception in the pesticide industry where the by way of the deemed registration, the data exclusivity is granted, which the Ahmedabad High Court has said that there is no deeming is allowed. So these are the basically that 5 bases, whatever that I basically that heard that all them. So particularly the principle of equivalence, whatever that my first colleagues discuss, as well as that justification for the presence of impurities, whatever he was talking about. My the question is, if the technical is not registered in the country, so that how, if suppose that how that one is going to justify that product is spurious, whatever that first from the IICT, the Hyderabad was speaking. So he should take up with the government of India. The technical registration should be made the mandatory in the Pesticide Management Bill with the reference of the justification for the presence of the impurities. Because otherwise, if technical is not registered, he don't know that what that impurity, how that institute like the IICT Hyderabad is going to analyze and characterize and prove that this particular product which has been imported as manufactured and being supplied to the Indian farmers are spurious. are the substandard.
Dr.
that's why-
Srinivas, would you want to add on to it?
Yeah. So I agree with the Dr. K.N. Singh. Actually, the lot of molecules, whether irrespective of whether it is registered in India or not, there will be impurity profiles that are available. So based on those kind of data and those kind of analysis, we can tentatively say. But as you said, yes, we should take to the government, and you should not allow these kind of the unregistered products coming into the India, and these kind of things can be looked into. Yes, they can be taken up to the government. In the bill also, they should be included, and such kind of things. And then when the government organizations like us, when we analyze and say that no, this is the impurity profile, though it is not registered, but however, when the product is there in the market, certain impurity profile is available throughout in the literature. So we can take that aspect and then counter that.
Dr. Srinivas.
Yes, sir.
This is Sandeep.
Yes,
I think Dr. K.N. Singh's point was, there is two things. One is registration, means knowing, and literature, label, leaflet, it is mentioned.
Yeah.
Second thing is monitoring. What Dr. Singh was mentioning, if there is no monitoring in the imported formulation, should not that be considered spurious?
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Because if there is no monitoring and all, that means no data is available in India.
So they should be considered under spurious, no?
Yes, obviously, because it's not registered.
So we request you to take it to the government, because from your side, you are a technical person in this.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That should be there.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Srinivas. Thank you, Dr. Sandeep. We'll take two more questions. We'll take the next question from Prija Poonan.
Yeah, hi. I'm Dr. Prija, and I'm from Crystal Crop Protection Limited. So my question is for Dr. Srinivas. So as Dr. Srinivas' presentation, he has compared the pharma research and agrochemical research, which is in the inception, the very initial stage itself. So I would like to know, in pharma nowadays, a lot of drug repurposing is going on. So is there any such extrapolation of concept in agrochemical industry as well?
There should be. But in one slide I have slightly presented where small change. For example, you have a herbicide with a small changes, its activity is drastically changing, and then it is repurposed into other areas. But yes, repurposing into the other areas should be taken up. It is.
Yeah, then we can lower that funnel of new product development in that case,
Exactly.
as being done in pharma industry as well.
Yes.
And yeah, my other question was as you have mentioned about neonicotinoids, so there is a huge hue and cry about neonicotinoids being harmful for honeybees. So can we understand the chemical areas where we can tweak and change those chemicals over existing chemicals, which could be more safer for bees? Such research is going on or not?
Yes, such kind of research is still going on. See, you can see the first areas, the neonicotinoid, first generation, second generation, third generation have come up. Next, now the mesoionics. Mesoionics now said to be non-toxic, and they are not sensitive to the bees. That means, there are certain parameters one can change into the structurally and make them even more safer. Yes, the new area is now in the same nicotinoids is mesoionics.
So is there any such research going on IICT, sir?
IICT, not the testing. Actually, we are proposed to the government to have a facility where new molecules. Yes, with the industry collaborations we are working. Okay. At least 3 different industries are working closely with us.
Okay, thank you. Thanks a lot.
We'll take the next question from Dr. S. Ramamurthy. Dr. S. Ramamurthy. We'll take the last question from Dr. Mujinder. Dr. Mujinder, can you hear us?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, can hear.
Yeah, first of all, my correction in my name that is wrongly printed. My name is Dr. Majumdar, M-A-J-U-M-D-R, and I am the Chief Scientist, the Chief Scientific Advisor of Crop Care Federation of India. Now, I raised my hand when actually the question of half-life came, but it's now too late. Even then, I would like to say just a word on that. Now, half-life is a totally different thing. It is a about the chemical when it is in the environment, when you applies the chemical either in the soil or on the crops and all that, it remains in the environment, mainly in the soil. So half-life means that when 50% of the chemical is degraded. Now these data have to be submitted by all the resistance at the time with the chemistry data and the environmental data when the product is registered. Now these has nothing to do, these doesn't show anything about the safety period where Dr. Sandeep, I think, explained there is a term called PHI, pre-harvest interval, where it is shown that what is the minimum period, waiting period from the last application of a pesticide and the harvest. Yeah. So half-life actually doesn't give any indication to the safety of the product or MRL when we are consuming that product. Now, Mr. Nimesh, I had one or two questions. I don't know if time is there. Now, one is to Dr. Srinivas.
We can just do it quickly. We can go ahead with the questions, and you are the last one.
I suggest that next time you keep perhaps a little more time for discussion.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I shall try to make it very short, Dr. Srinivas. I just wanted to know, I mean, a very comprehensive presentation. But Dr. Srinivas, are you working specifically maybe 2-3 products which are just off patent and which you might have studied that they are suitable for Indian agriculture? This question and one question, if time permits, I shall discuss with Dr. Sandeep. Otherwise, I can discuss even after the seminar.
Sure. Okay, sir. So, Dr. Majumdar, thank you. Definitely, actually, our focus is more on the industry related. I mean, we focus the more molecules based on the industry interests. So we take up the order based on that. So we obviously take actually the chlorantraniliprole is one of the challenging one. We are working closely how to make it generic one, but still patent free. So that kind of molecules we are working closely.
But Dr. Srinivas, chlorantraniliprole is still under patent protection.
Still under patent, but
yeah, it is not
we can break the patent.
Yeah, it will go. Which year is going to be expiring?
It's 22. It's expiring in 22.
In
22.
22. Okay, yeah. Now it is
by the time we develop,
yes,
the time we develop and all,
yes.
it will be 22.
Yeah, so I think it is the largest selling molecule now in India.
Yes, true. That's our actually the prime research molecule.
That will be very nice. I mean, if you can really give the know-how for manufacture of these products. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Majumdar. Thank you, Dr. Srinivas. We'll keep it short. I'm sure it was an impactful session for the industry and for all the attendees of the event. I would like to thank Dr. Srinivas Kantevari, Dr. Sandeep Singh, Dr. Ajit Kumar, and Dr. Kuppusamy for giving their insights on the Pesticide Management Bill. We are at the end of the session. I would like to thank the organizers, PMFAI and KRISHAK JAGAT, for creating a platform for the industry. We continue the support and will keep coming with similar deliberations in future. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thanks, Nimesh. Thanks everybody.
Thanks for
Thanks. Thank you, everybody.